What's up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of Established Run's NBA Injury Report Analysis Show. I'm Drew Dinkmeyer here with Mike Gallagher to walk you through today's now 9-game slate as the Golden State and Utah game has been postponed due to a medical emergency with Golden State staff members. Mike, 9 games on the docket. It's a big Wednesday slate. How are you doing today?
Doing good. Got a little hike in, and one of our minutes guys saw him kind of turned his knee a little bit when we were hiking. So he's on the injury report. He did make it down. It was a bit of a struggle, but
Oof.
best to saw him. Hope he'll be okay. But tough hiking when you tweak your knee.
Yeah, that sounds difficult. Well, there are plenty of knee issues on the slate to get into. We might as well start with one that's not on our team, one that's on the Minnesota Timberwolves. Anthony Edwards listed questionable here with left knee tendonitis. He's the only big name on the injury report for Minnesota tonight in their matchup against Detroit, front end of a back-to-back for Minnesota as well here. What are your expectations for Anthony Edwards tonight?
Yeah, it makes sense to sit him, right? I mean, classic front end of back-to-back. You get a kind of a bad team today, another bad team tomorrow, but that's national TV on TNT. We know they probably still hate the Grizzlies for the playoff L. So, leaning for him to sit, but don't really have a strong take other than the context of him having a little bit of a knee history. Obviously playing a ton of minutes right now in close games. So it just makes sense to sit him. So if he did sit, it would be Nickeil Alexander-Walker. If he did play, he could smash. I mean, the Pistons have some of the worst on-ball defense in the NBA. So, yeah, and then obviously Cat would deal with Isaiah Stewart, which is not a great matchup. So it could be really funneling a lot of usage to him. And the Pistons have been kind of iffy on the boards, give up some cuts and stuff. So, a bad matchup if you think about how impactful Jalen Duren is. But I think Rudy Gobert could also low-key benefit. Mike Conley would get more handling. They would probably bring in a little bit of Shake Milton. We saw Jordan McLaughlin get cut out. Obviously, Slow-Mo would benefit. So it would really be a team effort if Ant did sit. But the lead guy would be Nickeil Alexander-Walker from minutes perspective.
Yep, and from a usage perspective, Karl-Anthony Towns on that front, most likely. All right, Detroit side of things, some new bodies available for Detroit today. Danilo Gallinari and Mike Muscala both acquired in trade. It sounds like they will be available tonight. Bojan Bogdanovic also listed available on the injury report there without Cade Cunningham. What do the new look Pistons bring to the table tonight? I know there was some speculation on Twitter about starters jerseys, and that is your lane. So I'll give the lane to you.
Yeah, so we should get Bojan back. He's listed as available. He'll start, pretty mild injury. We got about a minute and a half off him for the injury, and then we got more for the blowout. So we came in a little bit light on Bojan, so expecting him to start. Jaden Ivey, Killian Hayes, whose minutes got cut down because Alec Burks was just cooking. Should note that Monty Williams said that he played Alec Burks too many minutes, and he'll look at it down the line. So there could be a little bit of edge, when they have a back-to-back set coming up. They don't. They're off until Saturday after this game. So they'll play him here. But just something to note, whenever a player talks about a veteran like that, the antenna go up for the 28 after gang. So Bojan back, that would cut into Asar Thompson. And then, Kevin Knox minutes would obviously come way down. We saw Asar, hanging in the lowish teens. So we could see his minutes really crater. Despite the Danilo Gallinari blue jersey stuff that you had mentioned, there's a few teams that run blue like starters jerseys are the same color as the third unit jersey. The Pistons are one of those teams. The Kings are one of those teams. The Nets are one of those teams. A couple others. I don't need to ramble, but it's confusing for people who don't live this. That teams run third unit and first unit is the same color. So you got to kind of be in the weeds a little bit. So I'm expecting Gallinari not to play because he wouldn't start for anybody here. Like you guys start him against Cat, you're going to pull Stewart off. It just makes no sense. So expecting him probably not even to play. I don't know if he's in the buyout market or whatever. So mentioned the starters. Marcus Sasser should be okay. Alec Burks obviously fine. Expect James Wiseman to probably hold it down. He could have to deal with Muscala a little bit. Asar and then Joe Harris kind of spotty. So, we got a pretty good feel for this rotation. Famous last words, though.
Yeah, and we should note just kind of quickly what the motivations of that trade for Detroit was, right? Because they gave away 2 second-round picks to be able to acquire Danilo Gallinari and Mike Muscala. And you might think like, oh, they really want to play these veteran players, and they're spending picks to get these players. What they're spending the picks for was cap space for next year. The salary structure of the players that they traded out were players that they had commitments beyond this year to in Marvin Bagley and Isaiah Livers. And by removing those commitments this year, it gives them cap space. Now, you can get into whether it was good for Detroit Pistons, a team who have struggled to attract free agents, to try to get cap space picks when picks are pretty valuable to these types of teams. But in terms of trying to project them going forward and immediately, I think the only risk the talent acquisition is simply Monty Williams being frustrated with how much losing that they've done, and maybe they experiment with players, but I don't think it's a front office motivated acquisition to like, hey, we want to players. So it's kind of important to break down why a team is making the moves that they're making when you see these trades made. Okay, let's move to Houston and New York. On the Houston side of things, Reggie Bullock listed questionable with lower back pain here. Tari Eason still out due to left lower leg injury management. What are your notes and expectations on the Rockets?
Yeah, we actually took Bullock just out. We had like a minute and a half for him. He was out of the rotation last game. He's had a history of back injuries, so no need to force it. We've seen him kind of pop in and out for Aaron Holiday there. So yeah, Dylan Brooks back, played pretty full minutes, expecting the same starting lineup as usual. Fred VanVleet, expect him to get his former teammate OG Anunoby. Tough matchup. OG's been pretty good. He's had a couple of games where he's got hit up a little bit by high-end guys, so tough matchup for him. And then, Jeff Green playing the backup centers. We'll see if Cam Whitmore can hang around. A little bit bumped by garbage time. Jayshawn Tate's minutes have really come down as well. So, yeah, I feel pretty good about the starters. Amen's still kind of hunting around, playing a little bit better lately. So, but yeah, could be pretty elevated minutes. Big road game. They need a little bit of size here, especially with the way the Knicks are rebounding really well again. They've been one of the best rebounding teams in 2024 with Isaiah Hartenstein, a.k.a. Isaiah Hustlestein, which a nickname that I gave him that the Rockets broadcast used to use on him when he was back there. Shout out to me. But, and then Jalen Green's minutes have been pretty good. We saw Dylan Brooks come back, and, at times we would see him slot into the two a little bit. But without Tari, there's still not enough pressure to push him. So Jalen Green could benefit. Just mentioned OG on Fred VanVleet. Jabari's going to guard Randall, so probably Dante DiVincenzo. So it could be a little Jalen Green path of least resistant game for him. Kind of like him a little bit more than usual, which is very unlikely. It's pretty thin, but I think he's got a path.
I was going to ask there specifically because I do think it's difficult to figure out which type of player you prioritize with those two defensive matchups. You feel very strongly that it's OG on Fred VanVleet?
Pretty strongly, yeah.
Okay, yeah. That one I was like, I was not super sure on. And obviously, we'll get to Jalen Brunson in a second, but that also might change if Jalen Brunson isn't available.
Yeah.
Just in terms of like Deuce McBride might be somebody they trust more defensively. So it's kind of tough.
Yeah, that's true.
Because Jalen Green is also a guy that is, he's just a little bit more burst, a little bit more athletic, a little bit more speed, and that might be necessary for OG as opposed to Dante, where Fred VanVleet's a little bit more like fighting through and over screens and different things like that. So I'm not so sure on those matchups between the two of them. Is
that's a good point on Brunson though?
Yeah.
Brunson,
so
if Brunson is going to be on Brooks for sure, like whoever is going to be on Brooks the week.
Right. Exactly.
But yeah, that's if that was in the Brunson. But yeah, if Deuce starts, that does make some sense, and then you would put Dante on Brooks in that case.
Yeah. So let's go to the Knicks side of things. Jalen Brunson questionable, Josh Hart also questionable here. A Knicks team that has been playing their rotations, fairly condensed since the trade acquisition. So we've missed a couple of games here from Jalen Brunson in a row. Deuce McBride has filled in admirably. I know Knicks Twitter is already constructing the statue. They're just taking the remnants from Quentin Grimes statue and they're reassembling it into Deuce McBride statue parts. But what are your expectations for Jalen Brunson and Josh Hart's availability tonight?
Yeah, new injury for Hart, knee injury. Doesn't have too many knee injuries, but he does have some. So could keep an eye on that. This is not a back-to-back set. Oh, no, excuse me. It is a back-to-back set. So he could sit this one, maybe play tomorrow, whatever. So definitely some chance Hart sits. They do play the Wizards tomorrow. So you would think, they're both home, so that's kind of a wash. So I think they're back today, but they definitely could. I definitely could see someone sitting. I didn't think Brunson was going to miss multiple games for a calf contusion, so I'm expecting him to be in. Don't have too much on Hart. If Hart didn't play, then Dante's minutes would come up quite a bit. Malachi, they could play maybe a little bit smaller as well, and then we could just see mega minutes out of the first unit as well. So and obviously with the Brunson thing, Deuce McBride would start. Could play, especially if Hart's out, they could play him a ton. So, yeah, kind of a whole lot going on. Those are pretty two important pieces for Tom Thibodeau's rotation.
Yeah, and this box score is reminding me that once I get off the show, I need to go to Google and learn a pronunciation because that third string center for the Knicks is not a name that I am comfortable
Yeah.
attempting right now, and so I need
No,
to
I'm
do
not
some
either.
homework on that one as well, just in case it comes up later. Let's move to Miami and Toronto. On the Miami side of things, a typically full injury report. The good news from our perspective in terms of interpreting it is it's all either out tags or available tags. So the out tags: Kevin Love, Jaime Jaquez Jr., Jamal Cain, R.J. Hampton, and Drew Smith, who's been lost for the season. The available tags: Kyle Lowry, Tyler Hero, Caleb Martin. Notice not listed Jimmy Butler, which is a good sign. Jimmy looked great in the return against Brooklyn, so I thought that was really encouraging for him and for the Heat's outlook going forward. Obviously, they were really struggling offensively in this game on the second night of a back-to-back, but Jimmy was the guy who was not struggling offensively. So what are your expectations for this version of the Heat without Kevin Love, without Jaime Jaquez tonight?
Yeah, pretty much running it back from the situation. As you mentioned, Jimmy got full minutes returned. Multiple reports saying he was going to return. We actually leveraged that to take a Bam under, which somehow hit despite him playing 44 minutes. Shout out to Nick Claxton, who's been playing some really good post defense. Bam's post ups have really spiked. He's had a lot of post ups in the last 4 or 5 games. They still held up pretty strong from a volume perspective. I expect that to continue here. Yeah, and then we'll see. Plenty. Heroes actually, even with Jimmy back and with Bam getting post ups, huge usage, season high 35 usage in this last game with the minutes he played. So yeah, it's going to be a 3-headed monster. And when you add to the fact that I'm pretty sure Scotty Barnes, who did a really good job on Jason Tatum the last game, he's going to get Jimmy. Uh, Bam is going to get kind of the path of least resistance here. It was a cover boy candidate for me. And then Hero, I think you're going to see a lot of Schroeder, especially if Gary Trent can't go, which we'll get to. So yeah, it could still be a pretty busy Bam game. He may not get the high end usage, but I expect the efficiency to get a lot better because Claxton, does defend centers pretty well. So, but yeah, it's a pretty. It should also note that Caleb Martin's minutes got up there. This is really the first time since he returned from an ankle injury that we saw his minutes get really elevated, which kind of cut into Duncan Robinson's a little bit. Obviously, it cut into Haywood Highsmith more than anybody else. A little bit of size on Toronto, so we'll see if Nikola Jovic can hang in there. But definitely expecting Caleb to make a pretty big cut into it. I don't think they're going to pull the plug on Jovic yet, but that's possible. We know that the Heat Twitter will tweet out a half an hour before the game with the pictures, and then we'll have to see what pictures we got. But I still expect Jovic to start.
Yep. And nice for Miami to get a day off here. Their schedule's been pretty jam-packed. That game was, I think, 5th in 8 days. So this is 6 and 10 days for Bam, who in these games has played like 37 plus in most of these games. So he's been playing a lot lately, which in addition with Claxton's strong defense, I think contributed to the inefficient performance last game. Better matchup out there tonight. Hopefully we see a rebound in that efficiency tonight. Toronto side of things. No Jakob Poeltl, no Otto Porter Jr., Gary Trent Jr. listed questionable, Grady Dick also listed questionable. There's the Pascal Siakam trade rumors that Shams reported on yesterday that it's hard to tell if it's posturing. Just that I would lean posturing just based on the price tags that were reported seemed unusually high to me for Pascal Siakam. 3 first-round picks seems like an awful lot to potentially pay for someone in a contract year that's not really committed to re-signing anywhere and has talked about wanting to test the market. So I don't think we're on high alert for Siakam trade right now, but that was a little bit of a shot to the bow that you have to be ready to potentially assume that something could happen late in the day before lock, so on and so forth. So what are your expectations for the Raptors tonight?
Yeah, the market moved on. The Raptors were -1.5 yesterday without really any news changing, and they moved a point. So, because I've got it on red alert, if we get any notification, I will run to bet Miami Heat and get closing line value because we know how that all works out. But yeah, so let's talk about that. And so we're expecting him in. I'm not really going to get into that because it's I think kind of a waste of time. But yeah, so let's talk about Gary Trent and what happened last game. He missed the last one, a little bit of a late scratch for illness, and the story was just condensed, man. They ran everyone real tight. Quickly got up there. I mentioned Schroeder, who's going to pick up a lot of the hero assignment. He would play like starters-ish minutes. I think they would just play really tight if Gary Trent came in there. Mentioned the Bam matchup. Jonte Porter, I don't know, man. I don't know. He couldn't really hang in the Celtics matchup. He got kind of picked on and stuff. So, kind of similar situation where he could look really bad against this offense. So we cut into his minutes pretty good. Just because we're a little bit worried about the bottom dropping out again. Do expect him to start. Could see that elevated. Chris Boucher just can't get there. Maybe we'll see. McDaniels is kind of coming for Boucher overall, but if Trent can't play, that would be, Miami's been pretty good. Actually, their last 3 games, their rim defense has been really, really strong, which has been a big negative after last year. They were number 1 in rim defense. So Miami, slowly but surely coming along here. They should have, I kind of still want to bet this regardless, but I should also note Scotty Barnes got some rebounding out of nowhere. I'm not really buying it because he was guarding Tatum, and they're going to continue to put him on high-end guys. He'll be on Jimmy Butler, quite confident in that today. And then they've actually used Bam on Siakam. The last 2 times they played, it was Bam guarding Siakam, a little bit of Kevin Love. So Jovic would be kind of guarding the center. So kind of a tough matchup for Siakam. So it could kind of get cooking for Emmanuel quickly just because he has a little bit easier matchup.
So in this last game against the Celtics, we know the Celtics can play smaller on the whole. We saw 31 combined true center minutes. If you consider Porter and Thad Young true centers, depending on what your classification of Boucher is, but 31 center minutes between those 2 players. Miami obviously is going to play Bam Adebayo 35 plus minutes if all goes to plan with them. I think you're going to see those Porter and Thad at least match Bam's minutes would be my guess. I don't think they can go out there and put Boucher on Bam or some smaller option. I don't think they want to do that. So my question is, the second unit in Miami, no Kevin Love. They've been more reluctant to play Thomas Bryant. They did flip that card last game against Brooklyn for a little bit, or Orlando Robinson. They've also been a little bit hesitant to use Jovic at the center spot, but I think they'd be comfortable doing that if this game plays really small on the whole. What are your thoughts there in terms of how that, because I think that impacts, if they're willing to play Jovic, then I think the floor is lower on the Porter Thad Young minutes combinations. If they're willing to play, if they're saying, no, we're going to mix Thomas Bryant into the mix, then you might see that floor raise a little bit on those guys' minutes projections. What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, we have 6 minutes of Thomas Bryant, so definitely a hedge. I don't feel pretty strong. I don't feel strongly that they're going to get him in there. I think they, like you said, they could definitely play Jovic in the spot. So we've got, 40% of Jovic's minutes at center, something like that. So I'm kind of with you that it could be pretty ugly. They could kind of cut the center minutes down.
So Thad Porter, you're thinking combined for basically close to a match of Bam?
Yeah, pretty close.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's move to Milwaukee and Cleveland. Milwaukee injury report really clean here, so I think we can skip past them unless you have any additional notes.
Jay Crowder.
Okay. Oh yeah, sorry. The return of Jay Crowder. What are your expectations for Jay Crowder's return tonight for Milwaukee?
Yeah, so I think we got him at 16 minutes. So the question is, who kind of gets booted? Andre Jackson was a foul machine the last game. He kind of got the start there for Chris Middleton resting in a back-to-back. So we think he's in there. So we know the starting lineup. We know it's going to be Damian Lillard, Malik Beasley, who will get Donovan Mitchell on both sides. Talk about him in a second. Chris Middleton, Giannis, Brook, bench, obviously Bobby Portis, obviously Pat Connaughton, obviously Jay Crowder. Then we're talking who's out. Is Marshawn Beauchamp out? Is Campaign out? We've seen a lot of point Chris Middleton. Could definitely see one of those guys getting booted. I kind of think Payne could go. So yeah, that's kind of where we're at. But the rotation could be pretty tight too. But we do expect Andre Jackson to stay in the rotation.
I am very deserving of this.
Oh my God.
I'm very deserving of this.
I heard you laugh and I was like, oh no.
So Pascal Siakam has just been traded.
Locked already. Oh God, I missed it.
Pascal Siakam has just been traded. And apparently the price was legitimate. I am shocked at that price tag that Masai just got for Pascal Siakam. I am the fool. Shams was not being manipulated and postured against. The price tag that is being reported is Bruce Brown, Jordan Nwora, and 3 first-round picks to the Toronto Raptors. New Orleans will be a third team in the deal, sending Kyra Lewis to the Raptors. That is a very big haul for Pascal Siakam in the final year of his contract. Obviously, the picks will have a bunch of protections on them. They won't be. I doubt they'll be lottery-based picks. They'll be middle or late first-round picks. But even Bruce Brown is a useful player as well for Toronto now. So let's go back to the Toronto situation.
I can't believe I missed it. I just talked about it. Why did I not hit that 1.5 last night? God.
The timing.
Well, it's
timing.
Yeah, it's Miami.
Too much.
Miami closing value is always a.
So what are your thoughts on what we see from Toronto tonight in the absence of Pascal Siakam? Now we know they're not going to have those other players available tonight. that they just recently acquired.
Man, all right, let me pull up the box again. So we saw, I guess they're going to start. I guess they would start Schroeder for sure. Schroeder would play mega minutes. So I feel pretty confident that they would start quickly Schroeder, RJ Barrett, Scotty Barnes, and then probably Jonte Porter. It would just be mega Schroeder. Jaden McDaniels would benefit. Thad Young maybe play some 4. Chris Boucher doesn't really benefit here. And then Grady Dick would probably sneak in there for minutes. But really the headline would be Dennis Schroeder would play 35, 40. I mean, he could play just stupid minutes today. And quickly. And it would just be tight central, man. Like we're going to put like 37.5, 38s on, the core guys.
Well, it'll be very interesting to see how the offense works as well, because inserting Schroeder alongside Quickly and Scotty Barnes, that's a decent bit of competition for ball handling.
It only moved a point. I'll take
3.5. So I'm interested to see how the offense looks tonight, with probably having to mix more ball handlers into the mix together and who kind of wins out in that scenario. I think just from a offensive construction standpoint, it would make more sense for Schroeder to be operating as the ball handler, because he's not as good of an off-ball kind of shooting option. But I'm really interested to see kind of how that mixes. And then Grady Dick is also questionable here, so it would be either him or Garrett Temple, who probably slide into that last rotation spot. But obviously, more risk on this game as a whole in terms of trying to project it, but more upside in terms of core player minutes here for Toronto. Okay. Anything else to add?
I only move a point, man. That makes no sense to me. Anyways, it's on FanDuel if you want to get it, fellow listeners.
Any other closing thoughts on Toronto before we move back to the Milwaukee-Cleveland game?
No, just we know that Miami's also been a pretty big 3-point funnel again. Like I was saying with the rim defense, it's reflected in more spot up shooting. So, if Trent plays, it could be sneaky. Could see. I actually want to know RJ Barrett. If you remember about 4 or 5 days ago, last Friday or something, I was talking about how hot RJ was as a shooter. Regression. He is ice cold. He's not making any of his shots right now. So clear negative regression on him. But big minutes coming. Could see Miami airball a little bit, and we've seen Toronto score a pretty decent bit. Emmanuel Quickly, a really elite pick and roll handler. So there's it could be a pretty big payoff just because you got the usage, you got the minute ceiling possibly coming there.
Okay, let's move to the Cleveland side of things in the Milwaukee-Cleveland game, since we covered Milwaukee side. Karis LeVert listed questionable here, right wrist soreness. They're still without Evan Mobley and Darius Garland, which feels like forever that we're going to be without those guys still. LeVert with the Q tag, what are your expectations here? Kind of an important spot for Cleveland, because obviously he's been their second primary usage player in the absence of Garland and Mobley, and his type of usage benefits in these up-tempo games against an opponent like Milwaukee that likes to play a little bit on the faster side. So what's your read on Karis LeVert's availability tonight, and how would they try to fill him if he was unable to go?
Yeah, it seems like he's going to sit. He was limited in shoot around, was really heavily taped on his shooting wrist. So I think he's going to miss this one. So that would elevate Sam Merrill. We would get Craig Porter Jr. back in the rotation for sure. And then Donnie he was my runner-up for cover boy. And, I'm kind of wishing, now that I saw the Karis LeVert news, after I wrote the article, I would probably flip it. I would probably think Donovan the cover boy, because the matchup is so good. Milwaukee #1 in pick and roll handler points allowed, and it's been growing as well. Donovan 9th in pick and roll handler points per game, and that's on the season. It's actually gone up since Darius Garland went out. So A+ matchup for Donovan Mitchell. Jared Allen, this is, if you remember, that mega 30-ball game he had was against the Bucks, which is very uncharacteristic for a player of his archetype. So he'll play a lot, probably more handling. We've seen a lot of the elbow, top of the key ball distribution stuff has been spiking, so he would benefit. Okoro would benefit. Max Strus was not quote unquote protected in the last game after he was in Paris. We saw his minutes get cut down, so he would benefit. More minutes for Niang. Obviously, Sam Merrill would be pretty secure for minutes. So it would be. We've seen Mick Bickerstaff go pretty tight, but you're bringing in Craig Porter for, I don't know, call it 60% of LeVert's minutes, and then the rest would be kind of spread. But Donovan will just be in a mega smash.
Yep. All right. Orlando and Atlanta. On the Orlando side of things, Gary Harris, Franz Wagner, Kevin Harris, Jet Howard, all listed out today. No questionable tags on the Orlando side. Will note that they're a little bit frustrating. I mean, for me personally, we can get availability on any Wendell Carter Jr. bets, so we didn't put anything out publicly. But I bet a lot individually on Wendell Carter Jr. stuff after it was reported that he had a 12 to 16 minutes limit last game. Well, he did not. He played 19, played kind of the full backup center role. He played long stints. So I'm like really confused at where that commentary came from, because it wasn't like an accident that he didn't play over 16. It wasn't like there was a long whistle and like they just let him go and play more than that. So what are your notes here on the Magic tonight?
Yeah. Why are you always lying, Joel Moses? Anyways, so I've got some bad news for you. Because Jamal Mosey said he will be changing his starting lineup, and it will be, quote, by committee, quote, every night.
Fantastic.
So we talked a lot about this. We were like, because we saw if you were following the news, it was like, oh, Black starting, and then we found out again that Chuma starting, and then Black was out. So I think this is like Chuma and Black are gonna like alternate until Markelle Fultz is capable of playing starter-ish minutes. So I wouldn't be surprised, and look at the matchup. They're playing the Hawks. You need guard defense here, right? So I would not be surprised to see Anthony Black start with Suggs, Paolo, and Goga. Get to Paolo in a second. And then, we could get him booted. What happens to Goga? Could Goga go out of there? We saw Mo Wagner, who we had an under on, guy doesn't even play. So we have all these players like vying for, the last 2, 3, 4 spots in the rotation. And we talked about this a lot going into the year. We were like, okay, could the last spot be Isaac? Could it be Black? Could it be Ingles? And they're back there now that they got Markelle Fultz. So this is going to be extremely, extremely annoying. He literally said, quote, every night that they're going to look at changing the starters. This reminds me of, the Steve Clifford thing where we had the centers where we were charting.
Yeah,
I think it's kind of like that. The Magic did that as well. And in a much smaller sample that wasn't as pronounced, like this one's going to be in the long term. So this is going to be really annoying. I haven't got there yet for minutes. It's going to be Hedge Festival, but pretty ugly. Markelle Fultz minutes are back. Paolo, the cover boy. I had to do it. He'll get Jalen Johnson, your guy, guarding him. Absolutely mauled the Hawks last time he played them. Touch time has come down a little bit since Markelle Fultz has come back, but I'm really excited about him. The drive stats have been fantastic. Top 5. He is, I believe, 3rd in usage in 2024. Again, just not a lot of high usage players around him. So I think the matchup's too good. The Hawks are terrible defensively. So really high upside for Paolo, whose minutes have been quite strong in the spot.
Yeah, really good spot for Paolo. Really difficult spot to judge the rest of the Magic going forward. And I will note, just if you are one of the people who uses our projections that become fully available after 5 o'clock Eastern each day, these situations where we're having to hedge a bunch of different spots, naturally in the market, you're going to see unders on 3 or 4 different players. They're not really viable to take unless you feel very confident, because what happens, like we took the Mo Wagner under, right? He doesn't play. We don't get anything from that. You don't win the bet if he doesn't play. It's voided. And so we were also showing unders on Chuma Okeke and Wendell Carter Jr. Those both would have lost because we're hedging down their minutes to include this other player. And so it's a really difficult situation to try to handle from a projection standpoint when people will like kind of blindly bet our projections. And it's something that you need to, use your noodle a little bit and understand the context that we're giving in these situations on when we're hedging out situations because of coaching comments, too many players in the rotation, not sure who's going to be the odd man out. There's always going to be an under projection when you're hedging players. Somebody is going to get those minutes, and we're assigning a probability to it as opposed to a perfect projection on it. Okay.
Yeah, and if I could just add one more thing on that, because with the Mo Wagner thing, just putting the puzzle together, right? We had the Goga starting. We thought 12 to 16 minutes of Wendell. You're already getting to like 36 minutes of center, unless Jonathan Isaac wasn't playing.
Right.
Like we were cooking on that bet, and we cooked too hard. We burned the food. We cooked it too hard. We got no money on that. So, but yeah.
I'm the one who got cooked.
I don't know why we took that. Yeah.
I'm the one who got cooked on the Wendell Carter Jr. unders.
Oh, God.
All right, let's move to the Atlanta side of things. No Wesley Matthews, no DeAndre Hunter, no Kobe Buffkin and Vic Krejci. What are your notes on the Hawks tonight?
Yeah, not much. I mentioned, Trey's been pretty good in the spot. He's going to have Jalen Suggs. He's had pretty good numbers against him. Could you see DeJounte having a really big game here? Big bounce back win from the Hawks. They almost blew this game, but had a really strong first half. So, the Magic take away off ball shooting. So this is a guard spot for sure with Trey Young, DeJounte Murray doing some heavy lifting there. And then, Jalen going to have to guard Paolo, but I think the matchup, could lead to a lot of minutes. They don't really have anyone on the team that is capable of guarding him. I don't think they would want to go to the double big thing here. So, Jalen Johnson's matchup isn't great, but could just definitely get there in the minutes coming off the career high 6 steals from him.
San Antonio and Boston. On the San Antonio side, Dominic Barlow, questionable with the G League two-way designation here, still without Zach Collins.
Yeah.
What are your notes on the Spurs? I did see Wemby got to 27 minutes in a game. I wasn't sure if that was related to a late whistle and getting him out on time, or if we have seen some sort of extension of the minutes limit. This was a game that they were down by a ton at half. And I think if I recall correctly, did Wemby not even start the third quarter? Or there was some. I saw a tweet about Wemby like not coming out at the start. Maybe it was for warmups. But what are your notes on the Wembanyama minutes limit? Have we had any more clarification there?
Now we're waiting for this doctor's visit to officially clear him for back-to-backs and bigger minutes limit. But again, this isn't a hard minutes limit. If they feel comfortable, they could push him up to 27, 28, or whatever. They could do it. So this is not the full Chris Middleton. We're calling timeout to get you out of there kind of situation. So but pretty iffy matchup, I guess. Depends on the availability of the Boston guys, which we'll get to. But expect 25-ish, 26-ish minutes out of him most nights. Starting lineup's going to stick. Trey Jones, very matchup dependent on Drew Holiday and Derek White. And then Dominic Barlow thing's fake. Like, they keep listing him questionable and they keep playing him. They're going to use his two-way days until Zach Collins gets back. It's quite obvious. So, expect him to be in there as well.
Yeah. Down 35 at half. They did not start Trey Jones, Vassell, or Wembanyama in the third quarter. And they went to Blake Wesley, Jetty Osman, Dominic Barlow, and then along with Champagny and Sohan, who they kept in the starting lineup. Then they got themselves kind of back into the game and brought Wemby in. And then he played, I think he played like basically the entire second. Once he came back in, he only sat for 3 minutes after that. So really weird substitution patterns, obviously. So projecting Wembanyama, I think at this point, I think we've got to consider the range is like 24 to 28, probably most nights, it seems like, because it seems like they're not going to err on the low side of things. But worth noting because every minute counts with this dude because the production is just out of this world.
He talked about making some defensive mistakes and kind of owning up to them, and that's kind of what happened there.
Boston side of things, Drew Holiday, Kristaps Porzingis, Derek White, all listed questionable here. What's your read on the Celtics, who it seems like every game they're sitting somebody and the rest of the guys just pick it up and it's no big deal, and this is their way of like managing their way through the season. What are your notes on the Celtics tonight?
Yeah, that's what it is. We just don't know who it's going to be. The fact that Jaylen Brown didn't even go through shoot-around the last game and then is out there not even listed is quite clear that this is just a rest spot. We've seen Drew Holiday get listed with this elbow thing multiple times over, so this isn't a new injury or anything. So, this is just a way of maintaining their team. Certainly, trap gamey vibes with a huge spread. But, I don't have a great read. If one of the guards miss, we know they like to go Delano Banton for on-ball defense. So, if one of them misses, and I would expect it just to be one of them to get in there. And I think Delano would start. They could definitely go big. I could see them, if they don't have Kristaps, they would start Horford there and then they would run Banton, one of the guards, and then the Jays. And then, Hauser doesn't really get up there anymore. Pritchard should benefit, obviously, whenever we see the front court guys miss and Payne doesn't really benefit, but when Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, one of the guards miss, we kind of see him get into the 20s a little bit more often. So he would obviously benefit if one or obviously both. And if both are out, they might even start him there. So, but this is like not really, injury related. Derek White played freaking great. He's been awesome, man. This is a kind of tough situation to read since it is pretty rest related. It feels like just based on the listing and how they treated Jaylen Brown, Tatum, and all that.
All right, let's move to Charlotte and New Orleans. On the Charlotte side of things, they're still without Gordon Hayward and Mark Williams. They've got questionable tags on Brandon Miller, Bryce McGowens, and Frank Ntilikina, who's been out for a long time, gets a questionable tag here.
Yeah.
What are your expectations for the Hornets tonight?
Yeah, pretty straightforward. The Miller thing that he was supposed to practice yesterday. I didn't find out if he did from what I was reading, but Miller seems like he's got a good chance to return from this, so he should be okay. But yeah, not too much else to add here. Yeah, it's kind of it. Should note Lamelo's usage has been really high. He's been top 5 in usage since returning from injury. Certainly just 2 games, but he was chucking. Rozier's role didn't really shrink from a shot standpoint. And, PJ looked normal returning from his foot thing there. So,
yeah, I mean, it's wild to see 64 of the 95 shots attempted last game were from 3 guys. So the offense remains condensed, resulted in 87 points. And by the way, Woj is reporting that Siakam is excited about the deal and eager to talk about a contract extension. That makes more sense if the Pacers knew they were going to be able to get a contract extension done, which sometimes back channels happen with these teams and agents and whatnot, and they have a good idea of whether they're going to be able to sign somebody or not. That makes a little bit more sense, the price tag, if they knew they're going to be able to retain him long term, and that's the guy they're building around with Halliburton.
My poor Obi Toppin shares, man, they're in shambles.
Down real bad. New Orleans side of things, Kyra Lewis is listed out for G League assignment, but I got news for Kyra Lewis. He's not out for the G League assignment anymore. He has been traded. Cody Zeller listed available here. None of their main guys on the injury report after a lot of them were questionable over the weekend. So that's good news for the Pels. What are your notes here?
Yeah, it was just returning back-to-back maintenance. So, yeah, full workloads for those guys. Really tough loss from them. And should mention Brandon Ingram is slumping. One of my biggest cover boy misses of the year, which says a lot. But, he's playing terrible. His mid-range is not falling. He's not scoring at the rim at all. He's averaging just 2 points off layups and dunks in the last 4 games. It's all shooting. And he's like, I don't know if we saw him listed with the Achilles thing, which is frightening. But the minutes have been pretty good. I think it's just a slump because he's so perimeter dependent, but maybe it's something else. There was a comment from Jonas Valanciunas about sticking with continuity of their lineup. There's been some rumors about Valanciunas in the trade. Certainly, he'll be playing today, unless we said that earlier about Siakam. But anyways, should be good to go. Zion's minutes look really strong. He's playing pretty well. A+ matchup for Zion. I almost covered boyed him as well. And then Trey Murphy's been playing really strong off the bench, consistently in like the mid-ish 20s. And then we saw Jose Alvarado, who we also took a chat bet under on because we didn't have availability. He got booted because Jordan Hawkins is playing really well off the bench. So Larry Nance really cutting into Valanciunas here, and I think that could pay off, especially since it's going to be a LaMelo heavy offense. It's kind of a New Orleans rematch here for the Hornets and the Pelicans. But Larry Nance not going away, man. This switch defense they've run is pretty effective. Their defense has been really, really solid when he's out there. The second unit's been really strong.
Yeah, I would also note that New Orleans has enough depth that they can maneuver pieces around and like play with things and try to figure out things game to game. This game in this matchup, the one being that Alvarado was de-emphasized for Hawkins, is really surprising to me, just given that Kyrie Irving is on the other side of the floor and guard defense might be a little bit more of a priority, but they're obviously very comfortable with Dyson Daniels in that role. So Jose Alvarado might need injuries to get back into this rotation because the Hawkins-Murphy minutes together have been very good this season in very small samples. So it's stuff that New Orleans is probably wanting to get a bigger look at before we get towards playoff run time. Let's move to Dallas and the Lakers. On the Dallas side of things, Luka Doncic is questionable here. Dante Exum and Josh Green are both out. Probable tags on Derrick Jones Jr. and Grant Williams. They'll also be without Omax Prosper and Craig Brown on the G League assignments. What are your expectations for Luka tonight? Do we see his return in Los Angeles for a primetime game?
Yeah, sounds like it. Kid didn't sound too concerned. They said they'll kind of wait and see and all that. But yeah, just the ankle tweak should be good. We don't have really much of a minutes limit on him. We got him at 36. We've seen him return and play full. But yeah, don't have too much to go on besides Kid. We know Kid's always pretty shady with his stuff. The Josh Green thing is kind of a big deal. We saw him start, and I would have been pretty confident he was going to start today. But out of nowhere, in the 130 injury report, he gets ruled out for illness. So that creates a bit of a difficult situation for who starts. We know for sure if Luka's in, he starts. We'll talk about that in a second. Kyrie, we think Maxi Kleba is going to start, and I'm very confident Derek Jones Jr. is going to start, and then obviously Derek Lively. So the question is it Tim Hardaway Jr., is it Grant, or is it Maxi Kleba? You do have LeBron on the other side. Kleba's been a guy who's guarded LeBron a little bit. So we're leaning Maxi Kleba starts, who's played his second game from a dislocated toe, which he apparently has dislocated multiple times, according to him. So that's not great, but they could start Tim Hardaway Jr., right? We've had these comments from kids saying that our best defense is good offense, meaning, hey, you get the ball in the hole, you get to set your defense, and that's kind of the way it goes. And a kid called Tim Hardaway Jr. a substitute teacher for filling in for Luka Doncic. So, maybe he's filling in for, Professor Doncic in history, and now maybe he has to fill in for Professor Green in biology or something. So, really busy over there for substitute teacher Hardaway Jr., but expect him to play a ton. We got a couple minutes for AJ Watson, a couple minutes for the Jaden Hardys, Seth Currys, and all that. But we've got them pretty big for the Lakers overall. If Luka's out, they're probably going to have to go double guard. I think they would probably go to Hardy without Green there. Green does have a little bit of handling. We saw him handle a ton in the offseason when he was with Team Australia. So he would benefit. Curry would benefit. AJ Watson would benefit in a big way. And then obviously Kyrie would just get the nuttiest of nut matchups against the Lakers defense. It is now going back into drop with the defensive scheme they're switching to. Could really, really get cooking against his pal LeBron.
Lakers side, LeBron James questionable, Anthony Davis probable, seemingly listed this way every game. Cam Reddish and Gabe Vincent are out here. What are your notes on the Lakers?
Yeah, they're good to go. The biggest note is they changed their starting lineup, and Darvin Ham said they will stick with it as long as everyone is available. Definitely fake Q tag on LeBron. We saw him return after kind of getting some maintenance, played 39 in one of their biggest wins of the year against OKC. So, yeah, we're going to see D'Lo, Reeves, Taurean Prince, LeBron James, Anthony Davis. Certainly going to see Vanderbilt, Rui Hachimura, probably Christian Wood and Maxey to fill out their 9-man. Minutes could be pretty strong here. Dallas's defense could be pretty vulnerable. But yeah, LeBron's handling did kind of come down, and Austin Reeves' handling went down a little bit overall. But I think we may finally have a consistent Lakers rotation for really the first time all season. It feels like.
Brooklyn and Portland, last game of the slate to touch on from an injury perspective. Brooklyn has a lot of out tags, but no questionable tags. So no Day'Ron Sharpe, no Ben Simmons, no Derek Whitehead, Jalen Wilson, and the rest of the G Leaguers, Keon Johnson, Noah Clowney. So with no Day'Ron Sharpe, what are your expectations here for Brooklyn tonight against Portland?
Yeah, the headline there was mega Claxton overtime, but still got to 43 minutes. Thank you, Bam. We had an under on him, and Bam was really, really fantastic with his interior defense there. And the other headline here was Spencer Dinwiddie, man. Minutes got nuked. It was going to be, quote, performance based. That's the new Jacques Vaughn saying of the month here, because he got cut down for Dennis Smith Jr. They really went into him. That could happen again, certainly with what Anthony Simons did to the Nets last time. We'll talk about Ant, who's ill. But if he's out there, man, they're not going to want to see Spencer's really down. And we talked about this kind of early on once Dennis Smith Jr. came back, that his minutes are more vulnerable, as were Cam Thomas's. So, yeah, Spencer Dinwiddie on alert. I expect Mikal Bridges to have a huge role. I love this matchup for him. And their starting lineup has been a problem. They've gone from their old starting lineup with Cam Thomas was one of the worst in the league defensively. Now their new lineup is one of the worst in the league offensively. So very much a grass is always greener on the other side with your lineups, but this is pretty ugly. DSJ not going away, Cam Thomas not going away. But bottom line here, watch Spencer. Claxton could play mega. Mikal could play mega and have a really big handling role, especially if Spencer gets cut down.
Portland side of things, questionable tags on Anthony Simons and Malcolm Brogdon here. Out tags on Moses Brown and Shaedon Sharpe, and of course Robert Williams. Probable tag on DeAndre Ayton and Ibu Baji. What are your expectations on what we see from Portland tonight?
Yeah, and we also are going to get Jeremy Grant back. He was kind of a late scratch for illness. So Aiton, right? He's missed multiple weeks for this knee. Second stint that he's missed time with knee tendonitis. So we've got a pretty hard cap on him. We saw that Shaden Sharp returned from injury, and they kind of mismanaged it. They brought him along for a couple games, ran him up, and then he aggravated his injury. So I expect Aiton to start, but I expect a pretty hard cap on him. It could be like a 24 cap, something like that. I think we got him at 22.5, which could come up or down depending on if he's starting or whatever. So keeping an eye on that. And then what happens to the center minutes? We've seen Jabari Walker play a pretty good bit of 5. Certainly the minutes behind Claxton, they could play a little bit smaller. So we could see Duop Reith go from 39 minutes last game to getting really, really cut down. Don't think that's going to happen, but certainly possible. And then, the Ryan Rupert and the Chris Murray stuff, Mania, they're all probably going away as they should get Malcolm Brogdon back, but they could sit Malcolm Brogdon, certainly trade season, as we found out today. Matisse Thybulle also cuts into them too. But, so we're going to expect the starting lineup of Ant if he does play. I'll get to Scoot in a second. Tumani Kamara. I expect Aiton to start, and then Jeremy Grant. So let's talk about Simons. Ill again. He just returned from a multiple game illness thing, so I hope he's okay. If he's out, Scoot would be in a big spot. So Scoot had a ridiculous handling role in the last game. He had 20 potential assists. And then what were the other stats here? He had
31 shots.
31 shots, 21 potentials, 19 drives, 9.1 minutes of touch time. And that's with Simons in the lineup. Scoot took on a big role. We saw when Simons returned from the first time from illness, it was Scoot kind of holding it down, and then Ant kind of pulled it away. But that was crazy to see Scoot be such a ball dominant player there. But we'll keep an eye on that. I love this matchup for Simons, obviously, though.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see how Portland allows Scoot Henderson to develop kind of over the course of the rest of the season. And one of the reasons that we've seen Malcolm Brogdon de-emphasized in recent weeks, one of the reasons we are anxiously waiting if and when he is traded to see what kind of return they get. But how it impacts Anthony Simons is the number one thing, because Simons is the most valuable fantasy asset on this team by a wide margin. Mm-hmm. And if he's having to cede 30 shots to Scoot Henderson each night, which is an outlierish performance, that will impact the ceiling on Ant, even though he still got there with 41 minutes and 28, 5 and 5. That is the thing to continue to watch as these two young guards develop together over the course of the rest of the season. Okay. That'll do it for this edition of Established Run's NBA Injury Report Analysis Show. If you are looking for more content from us, you can make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, get notifications whenever we go live by hitting that bell, and help us in our pursuit of 5,000 subscribers by the end of the NBA season. We are up to over 4,500, so we just need 500 more of you out there to subscribe to this YouTube channel to help reach our goal. In addition, I will also note that if you check out the Unabated podcast feed. I did a podcast last night that they just released reviewing how we go about doing some of our projections work and some of the props betting, sports betting side of things. So if you're interested in more content from me, you can see me on the Unabated podcast episode yesterday with Captain Jack Andrews and Thomas Viola. So check that out. If you are interested in more of our premium content, you can find myself and Gary Hartman behind the paywall at 5 o'clock Eastern time tonight, breaking down this DFS slate from a good chalk, bad chalk perspective, the leverage plays, the contrarian pivots, and of course, the flag plants for the Sheet Boys. So check out establishedrun.com/subscribe-MBA for more details on all of our product offerings there. And as always, if you enjoy this free content, the best way to support our free content right now is by feeding that algorithm and giving it the clicks that it needs to help circulate our content within the algorithm. So smash that like button, hold it down firmly, caress it gently, however you'd like to do it. Make sure that it gets pressed so it can feed the algorithm and help feed our families, which allows us to feed you the NBA injury information analysis you need each and every day to set your DFS lineups, your season-long lineups, and make your spread bets and your prop bets. So smash that like button, feed that algorithm. Nom, 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 nom. I'll see you on Friday. Gary Hartman actually, I think I'll see you tomorrow. I will be back tomorrow. Gary's taking off on Thursdays because he's writing leverage for us again. So I'll see you again tomorrow with Mike Gallagher. Same time, same place. Take care, everybody.